So, right now, a huge uprising is unfolding across Iran. But if you really want to understand what's going on, you've got to look beyond the headlines. This whole thing is rooted in a collapsing economy, sure, but also years of anger that's just been simmering. The stakes are incredibly high, and the real story, well, it's being deliberately hidden from all of us. Okay, let's get it. This right here is the big question, because you can't really grasp the protests in Iran until you understand the silence. See, the government isn't just sending troops into the streets. They've literally pulled the plug on the entire country's connection to the rest of the world. And this is what that silence looks like in numbers, just 1%. According to the internet watchdog NetBlocks, connectivity across the entire country has flatlined to just 1% of what it normally is. We're not talking about slow Wi-Fi here. This is a near total information blackout. It's a deliberate attempt to create a vacuum where the only voice anyone can hear is the states. But even in that vacuum, we know the first front of this war is absolutely raging in the streets. What kicked off as a protest about the economy has just exploded into this nationwide movement that's challenging the very foundation of the regime itself. Now look at how fast this all happened. It starts on December 28th with some shopkeepers in Tehran who are furious about the currency collapsing. But within just a couple of weeks, by January 9th, the BBC had confirmed protests in over 50 different cities. And the chants were no longer just about money. They were targeting the entire clerical leadership. That's a massive shift. And this brings us to the most crucial point, really. The conflict isn't just about controlling the streets. No, it's being fought at the same time on two totally different but deeply connected fronts. One is physical, it's loud, it's violent. The other is digital and totally silent. This really breaks down that two-front strategy perfectly. In the streets, you have what looks like a classic confrontation, right? Protesters squaring off against security forces. But online, you have a completely different kind of war, a war for information. And the state's main weapon is just the off switch. They're trying to cut people off from each other and the outside world, hoping to just starve the movement of oxygen. Okay, so let's zoom in on that first front, the war in the streets. Because as the protests got bigger, the regime's response became really coordinated, really tough, and, well, increasingly violent. And this is the official story, coming from the very top. Supreme Leader Khamenei didn't call them citizens with real problems. Nope. He called them a bunch of vandals and mischief makers. Now, that language is so important because it instantly frames the protesters as criminals, which then makes it okay to use a heavy hand against them. And that heavy hand has had a devastating human cost. According to human rights groups, at least 48 protesters have been killed. And just look at this. That includes 9 children. The same groups also report that 14 members of the security forces have been killed in these clashes too. And you can see how unified the message is here. I mean, from the top security council to the super powerful Revolutionary Guard, the language just got harder and harder, all in sync. They promised no leniency, they started calling protesters terrorists, and then they pulled out the classic playbook, blame it all on foreign enemies. It's a way to try and make the dissent seem illegitimate. And then comes the ultimate threat. Tehran's prosecutor announced that protesters could be charged with moharaba. That means waging war against God. This is not just some legal term, it's a religious charge, and it carries the death penalty. The regime is basically saying the price for speaking out could be your life. So now let's flip over to that second front, the war for information. The regime's iron fist in the streets is totally matched by its iron grip online, and the fallout from that is just as serious. This quote from a woman in London trying to reach her family in Iran, wow, it just captures the personal anxiety of this blackout so perfectly. You know that single gray checkmark on WhatsApp? It's become a symbol of a connection that's been totally severed, of just not knowing if the people you love are okay. It's this agonizing silence forced on millions of people. And the chaos goes way beyond just personal messages. Shutting down the internet has basically crippled Iran's entire modern economy. ATMs don't work, debit cards are useless, and that has triggered panic, with people making runs on supermarkets, trying to grab cash and stock up on food because they're afraid of what's coming next. But here's the kicker. The blackout isn't for everyone. Oh no. While the public is silenced, government officials have been given access to a white internet, basically unrestricted access. And the Supreme Leader's own account on X, a platform that's banned for regular people, has been active this whole time, posting speeches. They demand silence from everyone else, while making sure their own voices are the only ones getting through. Now, this blackout also creates a huge problem for us, for anyone trying to figure out what is actually going on. News organizations are banned. We depend on videos from citizens, but of course, those videos can't get out. And on top of all that, journalists outside of Iran are reporting that their families back home are being targeted, interrogated, even arrested. It's a clear tactic to scare them into silence. This whole crisis isn't happening in a vacuum, of course. While the regime tries to control the story inside Iran, you've got major international figures trying to shape it from the outside. And that's just raising the stakes for everyone. And here you can see two very different kinds of outside pressure. On one side, you have President Trump making a direct threat, which, by the way, the regime can then use to fuel its whole foreign interference story. And on the other side, you have Reza Pahlavi, the son of the last Shah, calling for intervention. Now, his involvement is complicated. It might fire some people up, but it also risks connecting these modern protests to a monarchy that a lot of Iranians also rejected. Both are trying to influence a chaotic situation from afar, which, brings us right back to where we started. When the streets are chaotic and the internet is dark, the real battle is over the story. Is this an uprising of a desperate population, or is it the work of foreign-backed vandals? In an information vacuum, the story that wins isn't always the one that's true. It's the one that gets heard. And that might just be the most decisive front in this entire war.